If your approvals, assets, context, and tasks all live in different places, you need a marketing ops intervention. Get everything organized and visible with Rike, the smart word management platform. Head to rike.com/TMM to see more.
Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up.
Cool. We are back with another episode of the Marketing Millennials podcast. And today I am here with the new VP of Revenue Marketing of Sprout Social, which is day one. I get to talk to her on day one of her new job, but she was previously at Marigold. She's been at a bunch of other companies before leading marketing. So excited to chat. Welcome, Hailey, to the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited. I'm a longtime fan of the podcast. I'm a super millennial for sure. So I'm just happy to be here and chat with my people.
I want to start off how did you get into marketing?
Yeah, no, it's kind of, I feel like it's probably not that different of a story for a lot of people, but I got into marketing kind of by accident, but it's a very happy accident. So I knew I wanted to write, I think, when I went into college and thought I'd go into journalism. And just by way of that, I ended up working for the student newspaper. And I had some other students teach me graphic design. I kind of kept picking that up on my own. And by the time that I graduated with a degree in economics, I was like, where do they want the economists? And that wasn't a thing. And so I ended up just using the skills that I had, which was, in telling stories and, creating beautiful visuals to do that as well. And I got into marketing just by way of agency. And at an agency, it's a great place to start to some degree because you generally have the opportunity to go project by project and get all different kinds of experiences with different kinds of companies. And the rest is really history after that.
I mean, I think the economist route, is it's funny. You just come out of college and you think there's this perfect role for you, and it's never that perfect packaged role, but it always ends. Usually you find a path that works for you, which is great. But
I'm always so surprised. I'm so surprised when I meet people that are like, I had this intention, I went to university for it, and I got out and I have that role. I actually in the last year have met a lot of marketing purists, and I've been high praise. You went and got your marketing degree, and then you've turned this into a reality. And I find that there's the passion that comes from those people is almost undeniable. And I've been spending a lot of time in the last year trying to unearth some of that from them because I didn't have that same sort of experience coming into marketing like that. But yeah, I think it happens for a lot of different roles, but especially in ours.
I want to go into some tactical stuff. So I know you've held, and we've kind of talked about a little bit, but leadership roles in a bunch of different B2B SaaS companies, from MarTech to digital health to workforce intelligence. But what's one consistent mistake you see companies making across all of them when it comes to actually knowing who they're selling to?
Yeah, man, I have had to learn that one the hard way, I think, just through sometimes you learn the lesson about, how you are nailing down the right message to the right person at the right time. You learn it backwards. I think it becomes a default reaction sometimes for people to lead with the what do we need to do? So, we need to put out this campaign. We need to bring in leads. We need to bring in opportunities. And through that way of planning, you kind of just end up producing these things, and they might get attention of people that are in, the realm of who you're trying to target, but it doesn't mean that like they will turn into opportunities. It doesn't mean that those opportunities will turn into revenue, and it doesn't mean that they'll be happy customers. And so I think really kind of moving in that direction versus reverse engineering, the data within the organization from your happiest customers that, spend the most with you over time to determine your targeting is probably the biggest and the most expensive mistake that I've made and I have seen other teams make over time.
I know you've talked about this before, and I know you've said that people say they're doing account-based marketing, ABM, but they're really just doing lead gen with a target account list on top of it. So how could you tell someone's doing that? And how do you know within 5 minutes from talking to their marketing team that their ICP is actually broken?
So I think the best and easiest and quickest way to determine that, and it's a great actually practice if you want to do a little exercise as well in your own organization, is go have all of the different functions across revenue. So it could, you can go as high level as marketing, sales, CS, and like RevOps or something, or you can get a little bit more granular, like product marketing, demand generation, revenue operations, like sales, right? And ask them what the definition of their ideal customer profile is. And I almost guarantee you that it's not going to be this kind of like same answer. It's either going to be way too broad, where it's just like a couple demographics, or it's going to be completely different from each group. And there can be some shared properties, but the problem is with that is like when you then go and have your campaigns and are kind of deploying those in marketing, you might be those definitions might end up being targeting a totally different group than who sales is actually going into. And so that level of alignment, if that's not there, I can immediately tell like there's either a lot of inefficiency going on or something is completely broken.
That makes a lot of sense because, the key that I see a lot is like the ad's not connected to the landing page. It's not connected to like when the landing page, like marketers don't share enough of like what the campaign they're doing and who they're targeting, and then like having a conversation with sales and saying like this is what the ad says, this is what the landing page says. When they come to you, they know X, Y, and Z. This is what you should be doing. And it's a good, when you don't have that conversation with sales and marketing, sales could be like, actually, we're trying to get this customer and you're targeting this customer, or they're not going to close the opportunity because sales are talking about problems that another ICP has and not this ICP, and you're like, that's who you're marketing to. So could you walk me through, you're day one at this job, but like you coming in day one, how are you thinking about, if you went day one in an organization, you want to like get everybody on the right page on ICP, from like the marketing team to the product team to the BDRs to the SDRs to the AEs to everybody, like how do I get the alignment and work backwards so everybody knows who the ICP is and can answer at least closely the answer of who our ICP is?
Yeah. I think that's a question that every marketer should be asking themselves today, and hopefully all of your other partners and the other functions as well, because it truly is the start of everything. And if you don't get that foundation right, then you might as well like set a pile of money on fire. So I think a great way of going about this is really like, first of all, understanding the definition of ideal customer profile. Marketers, I think anyone in go-to-market is so used to like jargon soup, and so we beat these definitions and like these acronyms to death. But really just kind of coming back to the fundamentals of like your ideal customer profile. Your ideal customer is going to be the customer that is most satisfied, that stays with you the longest, and that generally, spends the most with you, that shows that they're happy, that they're getting value out of what your solution is delivering to them. And so when I say that out loud, I don't think of like, oh, and let me just construct a couple of demographics that are going to describe what the ICP is. Think the nut of what I really just said in there was that the ideal customer profiles are getting value from what your solution delivers. And so really it's like the use case that they're using you for. So what use cases, like across your solution are you solving for? And then really rolling that back into creating your kind of core segments. And generally, if you have your ICP segments that are mapped into your use cases, you're going to directly kind of get those revenue outcomes that you're reverse engineering from. And a lot of times, I think for enterprise sales companies, you're going in and it looks like verticals. Organizations identify as a vertical. They have certain verbiage and like vernacular that they're using within their vertical. They call their customers something unique. They're using your product in a certain way. And so I think it's a lot about defining that. And then really the rest is about, it's another big picture, sending the right message to the right person at the right time. And so that's where all of your like filters come on as far as what buying stage are they in. That's neat that sales wants to sell to, this big logo, Coca-Cola, but are they even in the buying stage, right? Should we be sending them like messaging that's all about our solution when they really might not even be aware of the category, and really making sure that you're kind of campaigning and writing your playbooks around that.
And then one thing that I got out of that, which people make a big mistake, and I've seen this because I was in ops, is just because there's a group of people that is an audience that buy from you doesn't mean that they actually going to be the best users of your product, and they might end up churning down the line because they're not like the person, like you said, value. Because I think a lot of people get people in the funnel, they get to the opportunities, they close, and they mistake that those are actually ICP, but some of those, that audience churns within 3 months instead of like the ones that are been there for 2-3 years in your product. So I think like separating those out of, if you want those audience, maybe we need him, it's a product conversation because they're not getting value out of the audience, or we just are not doing the right targeting and people are buying, but they're not staying for a long time. Because I think that's a thing I've seen a lot too, is like we assume this is ICP because people are buying, but doesn't mean because they're buying, they are actually the best users for this product and will be most successful.
100%.
Yeah.
We're feeling that, like we're feeling a big pain of that right now. I think across a lot of the SaaS industry, especially organizations that like kind of had the market pull them forward and, like at the tail end, through COVID and the tail end of COVID, there was this like big boom and, like folks were kind of recalibrating and trying to fix a lot of things with SaaS solutions, just like throwing some technology at it, right? Because like the whole world of work had been disrupted. And now we're truly seeing, a few years down has kind of crossed. People have come off their 3-year contracts and aren't renewing because they weren't the ideal customer profile. And I think that like one thing that I'm also seeing, it's been really exciting in the last, 10 years, like 5 years, especially just as far as like technology that's emerging to support the intelligence that we have to kind of define and triangulate across our ICP. But we get happy ears and we index and model off of like, well, we're in marketing, we need to create pipeline. So let's model off of what opportunities we've like opened. But again, like those opportunities, that's not modeling off of the ones that have closed. And that's definitely not modeling off of the ones that were then satisfied customers and stuck around for a while, right? And so I think what I saw in kind of this first gen ABX approach with technology is modeling off of pipeline, at best close one revenue, but not really those long-term revenue outcomes that people like the CFO and the board care about. And so this has been like a really cool moment, especially with AI, like making a lot of things easier for us to really inspect on that and boil it back and like rework our models so that we're working off of the right data that we want to hit. I don't want to be 6 years from now having people churn, right? I want like my NRR up.
Yeah, I think that's an issue. Two, I think another issue is you stated this, you said the Coca-Cola example, like people get so enamored by like the shiny name companies when they're doing marketing and the CEO is saying, I want to get these logos and people saying we're going to get and these logos aren't really the people who should even be in our product. So talk to me, like, so once you've defined an ICP, so you've decided like, okay, they're this, these are our best type of customers. How do you start, like this goes to the ABM method, that kind of, like what does the building process of a list look like? And then the other thing is like, are there stuff you like, I know there's like form fields and stuff you could put to get closer. So you're like, people know that when someone comes in, they're close to ICP versus not ICP. So let's talk about like the first, like, how are you building that list once you've defined an ICP? Nobody designs bad marketing ops on purpose. You just wake up 2 years in and all your approvals are on email, your assets are in 3 apps, your Slack is a maze, and your Mondays are like one long status meeting. Rike is how you dig yourself out. It's a smart work management platform with visual collaboration, AI that catches deadline risks before they even happen, and the structure to let you focus on the real work. Integrates with everything, aligns everyone. Used by teams at Lyft, Ogilvy, and NVIDIA. Go to rike.com/TMM to see how.
Yeah. So I think, like similarly, as far as, philosophically, you want to be aligned on what the ICP is. I think like equally, if not more, more important, like technically, you really need to make sure that like the mechanisms that you're using between your sales operations, your marketing operations, kind of are all working from a single source of truth as far as that goes. And I think like, I can't, we're still here. It's like these transformation things take a long time, but the one thing that's going to immediately kill you from doing that is if you're still on like an old leads data model. You got to be on an account-based model. And like if you're going to go in and do ABX and like focus on segments of ideal customer profiles like that, you have to be measuring on like marketing qualified accounts, and not just like leads, right? Like this sort of like leads object. And that's a boatload of work in itself because, like, frankly, some of the technology that shall not be named, like, kind of can work against you if as far as like being able to have an account-based sort of like data model. But after that, it's really, I think, one of the exercises that my team at Marigold did, which I just had a bunch of smarties that worked with me there, was like, coming up with our highest level of segments. Like this is the highest level that we would segment. And the definition is for us, it was by vertical. And then after that, it was really like layering on an actual playbook of like, these are the 10, 12, 15 ABX plays that we want to do. And they span across the whole buying stage range from awareness to, consideration, decision, and purchase. And, through that filtering down always in a few different ways, depending on the campaign or the play's intention, but always the methodology behind it is to get the right message to the right person at the right time. And so it's really like, if they're high up in this stage, you ought to be doing a play that's about education and like just getting them used to your logo, right? And if they're further down in consideration, you want to be shortlisted and tell them why you're best. And so having a set of plays that really fall into where the majority of your accounts are falling in on the buying stage is really important.
I think 2 things I want to bring up you said is, one, I think people don't think about how much the technology they're using could screw like their marketing. Like the technology has false metrics that metrics that you should maybe not be tracking because
distracting potentially.
Yeah,
right?
Distracting. Or like some metrics that are inflated because of how the market is of like, let's say, email, you were at email. Email is like one of the most like open rates is one of the most inflated metrics out there because of bot clicks of like Apple, like opening things. So you can get, if you have a lot of Apple users in your list, it can inflate how people actually go. But I wanted to us go into the second part of this, but it's like how are we determining, or how are you determining which stage an account is? Because for example, like there could be people who churn, like you just, like if I was targeting you at Marigold and now you're at Sprout, and now I have to go target Marigold again and target whoever your replacement is, they might be now in the education phase of like who we are, like going back, because you might have gotten all the messaging, but they might have not got it. So I just want to know, like, how are we determining, okay, these accounts are in the buying phase, like in the education phase, these people are closer to buying, these people are well educated, they've done their research, they just need us to put the push to get over the line.
Yeah. And I mean, this can be said, I think, for kind of like any, like my response to this is going to be like, this can probably apply to any go-to-market motion right now, really, like whether you're doing like ABX, where you kind of have like enterprise segments, or even, like on the SMB side and product-led growth, is you have a few components that you're working with, right? Like you have your accounts and how you're defining what your ideal customer profile is. You have, and like at an account level, and then you have your buying groups, and that can be like a couple clicks deep, depending on your size or complexity of organization. You can have your buying centers where there's like departments. And then you also have your buying groups, which is like the people that are involved in the deal, right? So that's another component. Then you have like your signals component or object, which I would say like includes intent, but is not limited to intent. And then ultimately, I think when you think about those three things as a multi-dimensional object, I think that's your journey, like your journey for the account. And I feel like, just taking a pause here, just if I'm going to give like real talk, this is something that I think conceptually and philosophically, a lot of marketers, like the really, really smart marketers, like have this down right now. Like they can see it like a chessboard, like, oh, with all this new technology and AI, like if I can just configure all of these components and have all of this data speak to each other, like theoretically, I can model all of my marketing against these journeys that my ideal customer profile take, and reproduce these like perfect journeys over and over and over again. Unfortunately, I think when it comes down to brass tacks, like the tech is not quite there yet. Like the tech is still catching up when we talk about like big pieces that folks are using typically at kind of larger organizations. So like that's where you get false positives. And like I find myself, building programs really reliant on like, okay, we're going to rely on this piece of data that we have that says that they're in XYZ buying stage, just like you said. And the fact of the matter is that it's like by nature a little bit more complicated than that, unless you have like a whiz team of like GTM engineers, that have like programmatically orchestrated every single data piece that you have in some like living context layer. Then you are not hitting the mark on this. You're not. And I don't know, I'm not going to say there's no marketers out there that aren't doing it. There's got to be a few, but I would say at scale in enterprises of like companies that have been around for a while, that's what we're all working on right now. That's what we're all losing sleep over.
The problem is there's so many walled gardens, in marketing, with like Facebook's going to tell you one, Meta's going to tell you one thing, Google's going to tell you another thing, your tool is going to tell you another thing. There's like realities of these dark social stuff that is happening that people are doing that you can't, it's harder to track. There's trackable ways to track it, but they're doing activities, and the buyer journey is imperfect for all these different people. And the person who, like, if we're going off of like the same, let's say like play for this company or this company, but the marketer in that other company like likes golf and this person likes this, and you don't like actually get the personalities down for different people, you might miss the mark if you're trying to do the same firmographic play. Like this company is the firmographic play where there's humans behind all these companies, and you have to also align with that as well. So I think that it's so hard because there's walled garden ad platforms, there's walled garden tools, and all these tools are meant to keep you in the tool and metric give you metrics to make it look like their tool or their ad platform is performing better than it actually is as a marketer. So
totally. And I mean, you know what? I think like because of that, that's also why, or I mean, one of the big reasons, that's also why I come back to indexing off of the use case and the value that your solution is delivering, you know, and like how you're thinking about personalizing and segmenting. Because I mean, hopefully that's holding true across personalities, across people changes. You know, you can always get like bits and pieces right to make an experience feel extra special for an individual. But I would say like, that's the other thing when I look at ABM programs is really like, if you're going to try to do that level of personalization where you're trying to say, hey, individual in the buying group at a company, I know you like golf. That company, you better know a heck a lot about the company, a heck a lot about the buying center. They're probably very far down the pipe. Like this should not be an awareness play, you know, like that, like you need to have a lot of information about them. And I do see teams a lot of the times, you know, kind of trying to be, we're doing ABM now, right? And there's this like really strong just association and push for personalization. But like, you got to make sure that if you're personalizing, you're doing it at the right level and the right time, or it's going to feel weird.
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's like creepy level of personalization, and there's like, I honestly think personalization is just like personality at scale. That's me. Like, I think like the way you personalize is by personalizing your like your personality is like the scale of personalization. Like
that's super interesting. I haven't heard that take. I like that.
Your brand, if you have a personality and you're scaling that personality at scale, like that's personalization to me, because you're doing something different than what the market is doing. And you're showing a personal level of like communication to that audience. Like, I think that's how you do real personalization at scale, is like scaling your like scaling the personality of your brand, and scaling like, and knowing like this is the personality we're going to stick with in the ICP. And if I like, even if you said I flew to like Chicago, like Hailey, the marketer at Sprout Show, talking to like I flew to Chicago today to talk to a bunch of social media people, and we talked about X, Y, and Z. Like, that's way more personal than like, hey, social media manager, I'm doing like. That's why I think like if you could scale personality, I think that's personalization to me right now. So
I think that's such a good point, actually. And it's something that I really learned a lot more about in my last role. The last CMO that I worked for, Ashley, she's amazing. And she has like a really strong background in brand. And I think, you know, I'm coming off of a decade, maybe more, of like the marketing world and the SaaS world really favoring the demand generation side and the like number side and go make money, you know, like sort of thing, which like you can't blame people. Like, I get it. Like, we're all looking out here to like grow our businesses, but it's been like marketing's favorite child. And really, I think now with AI, with markets getting harder in general, right? Like, you can't rely on those sort of mechanics exclusively. And I really felt that in the last couple of years. And then conversely, like really saw the power of someone that like deeply understands brand. And Ashley's definitely one of those like marketing purists, like has just like is marketer through and through. And so brought that love for brand and that understanding of like how we build our brand expression into all of the forms of marketing and sales, and how that's both your kind of jumping off point, to have successful campaigns, but it's also your safety blanket for like where those mechanics fail you or, can only go so far. If you have a great brand that's telling a great story and a great message with personality, then you're going to go far no matter what.
Yeah, I totally believe that. And I also think that's why I was saying like firmographic people look at so much, but there's also like, okay, most of my audience is millennials. Like, what do millennials care about? Okay, like they love reality TV. They will probably love the Devil's Wears Prada stuff, like, cause they that's a movie they grew up with. Like, are they mostly women or men? If you start going down that rabbit hole and you say, okay, here are the age groups of the buying people, like buying committees. Here's like the generations. Here's what type of people they are. You don't have to personalize like golf for this person, but you could know that like if I talk about reality TV or if I talk about like American Idol, a lot of the audience would get that and feel like it's personal because it's like they get me versus saying
it feels genuine versus
exactly.
like superficial, right? Yeah,
like because most audience, some people won't care and some people will care, but it's like you could still have different messaging to get people to. I'm just saying, like if you work in those type of relevancy factors along with your brand, I think that is a way to do another way to do personalization.
I also liked how I like how you talked about personality and personalization too, because again, like getting caught up in the mechanics of personalization, it's like at best you're indexing on the value points, and you're like reaching out to folks and trying to get your message about the value that you deliver. But like, man, it's also just like undeniable right now how hard it is to get people's attention and eyes. There's just information is flooded more than ever before. And so that personality part is what stands out, right? And so I think it's really that balance of the personality, like the personalizing your brand's personality and its voice. And like, there's so many cool ways to redefine what that looks and feels like right now and what you stand for with the mechanics, right? And I think if you can get both of those right, that's where you're getting your like most memorable, best in class brands. Like those are the ones that I'm looking out for, like, and looking at who works for them and like, like those are smarty pants. I want to know them.
Like you said, like, okay, you take ICP. First you can't do this if you don't know like ICP. And ICP goes longer than just like firmographic because you are targeting humans too. So you like knowing like who those humans are at those companies is very, but then once you've come up with that like messaging, and knowing the ICP, you could distill that personality, that brand personality throughout every touch point and going to product and going to SDRs and going to sales, like helping distill all that through the through line of that. I think that is where the great brands do it, and the brands who don't understand aren't connecting like their messaging, their like values on every touch point. And then the ICP could see that because you're not going back to your core of ICP and messaging for that ICP and what problem.
100%. And people feel that, like people feel that immediately, right? Like people feel the disconnection in your customer experience if you're not having, starting with that same definition and that real kind of core understanding across every, group that contributes to your revenue generating, organization. Like people feel like we've all had an experience, where we have seen ads for a company maybe and like gotten another experience when we've been messaged by BDRs or SDRs. And then like undoubtedly, if you get handed over to the AE at some point, you're like, oh, wait, where are you going? And like that experience kind of, and then if you get into the product finally, and that doesn't mirror any of the other experiences that you've had, I think that's really where like it falls apart immediately. All the hard work that you might have done on getting your targeting right and your segmentation right and your messaging right falls apart if you don't have that consistency and experience. So, and again, I think that's another one. It's not a new idea by any means, but I think it's one that as marketers, we are always struggling to like nail and refine, especially as like product changes really quickly and everything around us changes really quickly now with AI.
It's funny because you said that, because I think every organization I've been to, a lot of marketers get the fundamentals. They know they need to be doing this, but when a target is put under their face, they forget. Like sometimes we forget the fundamentals of like, oh, this is our messaging, these are our values, this is our core, and then we go back to like, maybe we should do these best practices, maybe we should do this spammy type thing, maybe we should not do this, maybe we should. I think the brands that do it well, they just run their game and ignore. I mean, they have to hit their goals, like that's something else, but like they keep running their game over and over, and they know that if I keep nailing the message, because I know the ICP gets that, eventually we're going to get the market to come around and move people down that buyer's journey that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, I think like, I feel like that's pressure, right? Yeah. Like we know everyone's trying to do a good job, right? And they're like sort of thing, but the moment a number is out there, pressure does funny things to people. And also just like, everyone's kind of felt that chaos effect or the centrifugal force of like being in production, of like getting campaigns like produced and out and making sure they're quality and all of this stuff. But I think like, a really good marketing leader is the one that's holding that North Star always for people and like, beating it like a steady drum and then also protecting it really closely. And I think the biggest difference that I've seen is like, not just that in a silo, but like is in complete alignment and has a great relationship with the CRO as well. If the CMO and the CRO have a good relationship, and then like, their lieutenants as well, those VP levels, having that sort of connection, holding that line for the North Star and just reminding people like, hey, train back on the tracks. We have a mission. Like, let's not get distracted by these shiny things, because there's a lot of shiny things out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, I always think about like in sports of how when your confidence level is up, you're doing great things. There's like this sort of flow to your game or something like that. But then when you start getting into a pressure situation, you like tighten up. You forget your fundamentals. You forget that you should be. You forget you're supposed to be doing this because there's like pressure. And I think a great coach or great leader brings you back, like you said, brings you back to, okay, this is where we need to focus on. Just get back to our bread and butter. Like we're good at this. Like let's stop like trying to do TikTok or something because everybody else is doing it. That's just our bread and butter of these channels, and we're winning on these channels, and let's keep playing our winning game instead of like trying to do someone else's winning game. And if we want someone to win in that game, let's bring someone on who can help us win in that segment or in that channel. But till now, let's just do our winning game and remember our fundamentals and remember that we could win if we do the right, like these things, and a coach would bring you back to do that. But if you don't have a leader, it's chaos everywhere.
I'm a very big believer in kind of like staying the course, creating a plan within reason. Like it just depends at your size, stage, and whatever of organization, how long and how deep that plan is, but creating the plan, knowing that you're doing it for a reason, and having planned and intentional sort of like feedback loops to know when you need to kind of have a circuit break and change what you're doing if it's not working. Or, if you're kind of like in a groove, planned experimentation in some way. I know that makes me sound like a wet blanket of a person, like planned fun, but like, I think it's just a more responsible way to spend your resources and your time. So yeah, I think, having that in your strategy makes a lot of sense.
Let me ask you a couple of quick questions, and then I'm going to ask the question I ask everybody in this podcast, but okay. One question I have for you. What is the difference between ICP and target market?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. Someone out there might have a better answer than me, but I think when I really think of my ideal customer profile, it's more about how they're using the product. So like I'm saying this again, but related to the value that your solution is given. And I think signals, like now that we're kind of like where we're at these days with the type of information that we can get about accounts and we can get about people, I think that signal layer, as far as like, what is the company up to? What are the people in there doing? Like what's going on at the company? Are they going through something that your organization can support, like some sort of transformation? Are they choosing to focus on the thing that your product does that year? We can pick those things up, right? And like earnings calls and all sorts of domain level activity. And then like, what are the people doing? What's their level of awareness of your organization? Do they know you? Do they not know you at all? Are you going to be on the short list when they go to RFP? Would they literally go, huh? If someone asks them, do you know XYZ company? And so like, because we can have all of that intelligence now, that really should be, when you're getting asked, who are we going to sell to this year? It should be an answer that's around like that versus total addressable market, which inevitably is going to be like, in an enterprise company, you're like, that's 60,000 accounts, it's enormous number.
I always think about that's like the like ultimate goal is that like the total addressable market is like that ultimate goal. We can, based on like what our product could be, we could address all these people. But we're at our current state of product right now, and this is the group of people who will be a deal to serve. And then once our product becomes bigger or more adaptable, we could start capturing that from that like 60, getting closer to that 60,000. But most like when you're starting in a product, not everybody is going to be the best for that your product right now, and that's how. This is how I think about ideal customer. You said it kind of at the beginning, but that's how I think about it.
That comes with like tiering too, I think, as well, where like if you're thinking about an ideal customer profile, it like can be, like we're prioritizing, we're focusing on these tiers because we serve them best right now based on what our product does, right? Could we sell into these other verticals? Sure. Like, but those verticals, maybe those markets aren't growing. Maybe that market is having a really hard time, and so they're not buying extra solutions. So like, I feel like those are all the things that are normally like the whole kit and caboodle is in your total addressable market. Like, who could you sell to? Who you want to, and who you can sell to is that different thing. I think that defines the ICP.
What is one thing that people should like? How could I? If today I wanted to stress test my ICP, like what's one thing I could do today to stress test it if it's right?
Yeah, so I actually just I did an exercise with an organization a couple of weeks ago where I actually did this audit. It was through this organization that I kind of like met up with in the last few months called Align ICP. They have this approach that it basically gets like all the revenue leaders or people contributing to revenue. So think about CMO, CRO, VP of demand gen or ABM, your rev ops person, and maybe like your CFO or someone in finance or like marketing analytics. But it's essentially a sort of initial survey that's just like asks some of these questions that you and I were talking about. And I think I have been shocked to see how much you learn from just like a sort of like audit and survey like that, to see everyone's definition and basically to understand like how close are you to an aligned definition that you can just like operationalize, and get into the mechanics and like, good, okay, we cleaned up house. Or how far away are you from like, we all need to get in a room and have a chat about this, about like where we're making money, what we're selling, and like how we're going to hit our targets this year. Because otherwise everyone's kind of just running around in their own little circle, like a chicken with their head cut off.
Yeah, I think stress testing that, and then stress testing, like having a survey and just saying like, explain what we do. Like just to see how does everybody understand our messaging?
Like what value we're providing?
Yeah. Because you could have a different answer from sales reps. You could have a different answer from people in your marketing team, and that's a scary thing to go about. Like if everybody has a different definition of what value you're providing, then there's something wrong, and it's not being communicated well. I feel like these things of who your ICP is, our value, like our problems, should be communicated every single marketing all hands and every single company all hands. That should be a slide in every single time, because there's always new people joining the company and always new people so I think it should always be communicated.
I think it's a good idea. That would really prevent, because I mean, like, look, I think at one point for most organizations, this was all right. It was all, like it was there, and drift just happens as you grow. It's like part of a growing pain, right? And so kind of like collectively bringing that back together is a really smart idea. And, the one other thing that I have seen as a kind of like established pattern where this and this has really been the birth of my obsession with ICP in the last year, and getting it down in like your ICP segments really correctly and prioritize, is simply, if you're hitting pipeline targets and you're not hitting revenue targets, it could be a few things, but I've noticed a pretty distinguished pattern that if you peel back the layers and, you're going to find that there is that drift happening with your defined ICP and how you're targeting against them. So that's one simple thing, one simple little note.
I think the pipeline revenue, and then you can also look at like churn too, to see
totally.
Those are like the three ways of
especially
pipeline.
I think the more sophisticated and older your organization is, absolutely be like, if you're having all of that churn but you're making pipeline, that doesn't make sense, right? Something's wrong there. And I would say doing a bit of an ICP audit after that as a point of investigation, and you're going to learn a lot, and I think come up with a lot of not necessarily easy things to fix, but easily identified and doable. And they will pay themselves in spades.
Last question I asked everybody in this podcast, but is what's a marketing hill you would die on?
Oh, marketing hill I would die on. You can't have demand without brands. I come from a very, especially in recent years, very heavy revenue marketing background, very crunching the numbers, rubbing elbows with sales. And I think everyone wants new opportunities. Everyone wants more pipeline. And our brand and our product marketing sort of folks often don't get resourced enough, or, aren't given the love. But you're not going to open the deals you want, and you're not going to close the deals you want if you don't have good brand. So can't have demand without brands.
A lot of demand generation functions are just demand capture functions.
Yes.
They're not actually generating new demand for the company. They're just capturing what exists in the market right now and then
Correct.
that's how you hit your numbers, and then you're why am I not hitting my numbers in year 2 and year 3 and year 4? It's because you've just been capturing that small amount of people who have been in the market and then you're now you're competing against people who are doing that, and their name is bigger than you, and when it comes down to it, they don't think about your brand when that arises, that they have a problem. So
no, absolutely. I mean, no matter how much focus I have on the numbers, I have such a deep appreciation, respect, and I know symbiotic relationship with those other parts of marketing that I have to be so close with. Otherwise, everything I'm doing is in vain. So I'm all about kind of it's one team, one dream across the marketing squad, all the revenue squad really, but marketing is my playground.
Lastly, where can people find you and what you're doing? I know you just got your new job, so congrats on that. And where can people follow your journey?
Yeah, thank you. I would love to be connected with this whole crowd. Like I said, I'm long time fan of the show. So anyone, please reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn, Hailey McDonald. Yeah, you can look me up under Sprout now. So the new VP of Revenue Marketing. That's mostly my stomping grounds these days, but please feel free to drop a line and reach out. I'm always happy to have coffee talks and chats. I feel like that's been one of the biggest parts of my journey in the last year, is learning from other marketers that are kind of outside of my own little, squad or echo chamber. And it's my favorite part of the craft.
Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. It was great being here.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.